Good afternoon. My name is Frances Maskell, and welcome to the Royal Courts of Justice and Upper Tribunals Project presentation, in which we're delivering CE file to both the High Court and tribunals. I'm joined today by Jackie Chandler, Laura Campbell-Carr, and Steve Rogers, who are all part of the project. Today's presentation will be an overview of the CE file project so far, followed by a demonstration of CE File Portal, where you will see how to register and track a case. So what is the project delivering? Well, the RCJ and Upper Tribunal project is part of the HMCTS reform program, which is aiming to modernize access to justice and improve the experience of both citizens and employees. For those of you who do not know, the RCJ and Upper Tribunal project is a digital case management system called CE File, which has already been delivered to a number of jurisdictions within the RCJ and Upper Tribunal chambers and the Employment Appeal Tribunal. It is made up of two sections, Case Management System and the e-filing service. The case management system is for internal use only for courts and tribunal staff and judiciary to be able to issue and manage the cases electronically, list cases, and therefore help remove the need for a paper file. On the other side, the e-filing service is for external users, i.e. professional users and litigants in persons who can be an individual submitting the claim themselves rather than through a third party. This service will allow users to interact with the court online, issue and file documents, pay court fees, and review and track cases anytime from any location. So who's involved? Well, the remit of the project when it started was to deliver to 4 divisions of the High Court. That's the Chancery Division, Queen's Bench Claims and Appeals, High Court Family Appeals, and the Court of Appeal Civil Division only. We were also rolling out to the 7 High Court District Registries in Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Cardiff, and Newcastle, to the Senior Courts Cost Office, and to the 4 Upper Tribunal chambers, Lands, Tax and Chancery, Immigration and Asylum, and Administrative Appeals Chamber. We're also delivering to the Employment Appeal Tribunal. I'm now going to hand over to Laura Campbell-Carr, who will explain what was delivered so far. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Francis. I'm now going to run through what's been delivered so far for the jurisdictions that are on CE File and give you a brief description of what each jurisdiction does. If you're interested in knowing more about these jurisdictions, please refer to our gov.uk website. The Queen's Bench Division, Claims and Appeals, is responsible for civil cases involving contract and tort, and several of its judges also sit in the Crown Court hearing criminal matters. The Queen's Bench Division has several specialist courts with their own individual areas of work. They started using the case management system in November 18. E-filing was then made available to users in January 19, and e-filing was mandated for represented parties from the 1st of July 19. To clarify, for all jurisdictions, e-filing is not mandated for litigants in person. And a litigant in person is an individual who submits themselves rather than through a third party, for example, a solicitor. The Business and Property Courts is the new name for England and Wales's international dispute resolution jurisdiction and will act as a single umbrella for business specialist courts across England and Wales. It was previously known as the Roll Building by many and processes work in district registries and the main London site. It will encompass the specialist courts and list of the High Court detailed below. Those are the Commercial Court, including the Armoury Court and the Circuit Commercial Court, the Technology and Construction Court, and the courts of the Chancery Division, including those dealing with financial services, intellectual property, competition and insolvency. The Business Property Court, the Rolls Building, has had e-filing since 2017, so these figures only apply to those filings in the district registries, of which there's 7. They started using the case management system in January 2019, This, as I said, this was an extension of the system in place in the Rolls building in London to the 7 business property courts outside of London. E-filing was made available to users in February 19, and then e-filing was mandated for represented parties from the 30th of April 2019. The Senior Courts Cost Office assesses the costs and expenses incurred in civil litigation to decide how much a successful party in litigation can recover from their opponent. A barrister or solicitor can recover from public funds, and a client should have to pay their fee. It also considers cost appeals in criminal cases and deals with cost assessments transferred from other county court centres and district registries and appeals against cost decisions made by the Legal Aid Agency. They started using the case management system in July 2019. E-filing was made available to users in October 19, and then e-filing was mandated for represented parties in January 2020. High Court family appeals. The Family Division deals with matters such as Children Act proceedings, wardship and complex adoption applications, and high value or high profile ancillary relief proceedings. The Family Division deals with all matters of international child abduction and complex public law cases, medical applications and court of protection cases. They started using the case management system in October 19, and e-filing was made available to users in February this year. Because of the nature of these cases, it was deemed not appropriate for mandation. The Queen's Bench Division outside of London. So as I explained earlier, I've already explained earlier what the Queen's Bench Division does, and this is the same but for the district registries outside of London. And those district registries are Birmingham, Bristol, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle and Wales. And these are the same district registries for the Business Property Court as well. They started using the case management system in May this year. E-filing was then available to users from July this year, and e-filing is mandated for represented parties from the 18th of October this year. For the following jurisdictions, the date for mandation is still to be confirmed. So the Upper Tribunal Lands Chamber deal with disputes concerning land, including the purchase of land blighted by the proposal of a public authority, compensation for land compulsory purchased, and or the value of which has been affected by public works. They started using the case management system in October 2020, and then e-filing was available to users from June this year. The Upper Tribunal Tax and Chancery Chamber deal with appeals against decisions for the first tier tribunal in tax or charity cases and appeals against decision notices issued by the Financial Conduct Authority and the Pension Regulator. They started using the case management system in October 20, and then e-filing was made available to users from May this year. The Administrative Appeals Chamber, which also includes Scotland, hears appeals against decisions of the General Regulatory Chamber, except in charity cases, the Health, Education and Social Care Chamber, the Social Entitlement Chamber and the War, Pensions and Armed Forces Compensation Chamber of the First Tier Tribunal. They started using the case management system in August this year, and then e-filing is expected to be made available by the end of this year. The Upper Tribunal Immigration Asylum Chamber deal with appeals against decisions made by the First Tier Tribunal in matters of immigration, asylum and nationality. They also deal with judicial reviews involving immigration, asylum and nationality matters. Appeals started using the case management system in August this year, and then judicial reviews started using it in November this year. E-filing will not be made available to users until at least January 2022. The Employment Appeal Tribunal, also includes Scotland, is an independent tribunal which settles legal disputes around employment law. They are responsible for handling appeals against decisions made by the Employment Tribunal where a legal mistake may have been made in the case. They started using the case management system in April this year. E-filing was then made available to users from July this year. And the final jurisdiction is the Court of Appeal Civil Division. They hear appeals from the county courts, tribunals and the High Court in civil and family matters. All Lord and Lady Justices can sit in the court in panels of 2 or 3 depending on the type of case. The rollout of the case management system commenced in September this year and is being done in a staggered approach for the different types of cases. E-filing is not currently available, but there are plans to introduce it in early 2022. I'm now going to pass you over to my colleague Jackie, who will run through what's been delivered this year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Laura. So during this year, we've delivered a number of what we call technical releases of CE-File to enable various jurisdictions to start using it, such as the Court of Appeal. We've still got a little bit of work to do this year, but what we've been doing so far is some enhancements to the current system as well. So some of those enhancements will include, where applicable, there were some fee increases on the 30th of September this year. And we have made sure that those new fees are reflected in the system. We've also introduced a link to the portal for help with fees. So that will enable a litigant in person to access the help with fees portal, go in, check whether they're eligible for help with fees, get a reference number, etc., that will help with the processing of their case with the court. Another example of where we've made some enhancements is for some jurisdictions, particularly the upper tribunals. Not all representatives have what we'd call a legal status. So we've had to remove the phrase legal from some of the fields that we've got within CE-File that's visible for the court staff, because that means that we can apply the rules that are relevant for those particular jurisdictions. So that's some of the examples really of where we've made some changes to the fundamental system that enables people to either submit a case or manage it through the court system. As Laura has already said, we do have quite a lot of information on gov.uk. Please seek it out. There's a page there specifically on CE-File itself. It will explain which jurisdictions currently have the e-filing service available. There are guides on that page as well, and also there's information there about how you register for a CE-File account, because you can't actually use CE-File unless you have an account. So moving on, so we've still got some work to deliver by the end of next March, when the project is due to close. So a number of the jurisdictions where we've rolled out CE-File to have current systems where we're migrating the data from those systems into CE-File. So by the end of the year, all being well, we'll have migrated data from the Administrative Appeals Chamber, from the Upper Tribunal Immigration Asylum Chamber that deals with judicial reviews, and Court of Appeal Civil. Once those migrations have been made, that enables us to start introducing the e-filing service to external users. So as I say, hopefully we'll get all of that done. Certainly the migrations aim to get that done by the end of the year, and then early next year the rollout of the e-filing service to the remaining jurisdictions will be completed. And then by the end of March, this project is expecting to close, having delivered to everybody that we were expecting to deliver to. So thank you very much for listening to what we've been saying on these slides. I'm going to pass you over to Steve now, which is the exciting bit of the presentation, because he's actually going to show you CE-File and how it works. But if you wouldn't mind just bearing with us, there may well be a little bit of a time lag while we swap the screens. Thank you.
Sorry, Steve, just to jump in there, you're on mute.
Sorry, apologies.
No worries.
There is always one thing that there's always someone who lets the slide down on this, and I do apologise. Again, sorry, welcome. So I'm just going to run you through the e-file portal. As you can see, you can register for an account. You just simply click on register as an e-filer. And like most online systems now, you can register on the system itself. You use your email account as your username. You generate your own password, and then you fill out the relevant information on here and click Save and Next. I've previously registered for an account, and this is one of our test sites, so it has all the functions. So if you just bear with me whilst I log in. So once you've completed the registration process and you've signed in, this will be your first screen that you see. So you can configure the home screen by clicking on the little cog symbol to the right, and we have what we call widgets. And we would suggest I would suggest that you have open approved, draft, rejected, or submitted filings. Simply tick the box and click save. And then it brings up the widgets on here, and these are all manageable, and you can move these around to put them into a more logical step. So for example, if we did put them in here, so I've got my draft, so at each point I can see where my filings got to. So I'll go draft, submitted, and approved or rejected filings. And so that would be your home screen. So I'll quickly go through the left-hand side of the screen. Case search will only search for cases that your account has been linked to, and to link your account to a case, you have to make a filing through the system in the first instance, and for that filing to be approved by the court. Obviously, the create filing, which is the next step I'll come to in a moment, and that's just how you begin and make the process of making a filing. You've got your filings type, so you have again another option where you can go into and check on filings and their subfolders. The public search function, where you can carry out public search for certain jurisdictions, such as the Business and Property Courts and the Queen's Bench Division. And then if you know a case number, you can create an office copy through the system as well. I'll just go back to create a filing now. So in here, I'll do this through the Business and Property Court, but you'll see on here that there's different jurisdictions that you can file within. So if I go down, you can see that, again, this is a test case. So some of the jurisdictions aren't live at the moment, but will be going live at a later date. But you can see the different options that you have here. So I'm just going to go back to the competition list in the Business and Property Court. I then have the option to choose between either a new case or if I'm going to file an existing case within the system. In this instance, I'm going to file a new case. I'm then going to choose it as a Part 7 claim in this option. And I will say at this point, each jurisdiction and each list will have a slightly different case type. So if you're using, for example, in the Court of Appeal, the case type would be different again. So each jurisdiction has its own case type, case categories as well. But back onto the filing. So if I go to now filing, and I'm going to file a Part 7 claim form. I hit save and next. And I'll just quickly go back to the home page again. So again, I can do that by just clicking on the banner at the top where it says HM Courts and Tribunals. And you will see that with the widgets open, I can see that I've got a filing that's now sitting in my draft filing queue, waiting to be completed and submitted to the court. To get back into that case, I can just either go here and just click on it where it highlights, or alternatively, I can go into draft, which takes me to a second screen. If I just click on here, I'm into the filing summary page, and I can go back through each of these tabs at the top to pick up where I need to, what information I need to fill out. So in this example, I'm going to add a case party, and there's a complete list, and so hopefully you should be able to get all the different party types that you need to a case. In this example, I'm going to go with claimant. I'm going to go with an individual, an organisation, and I'm going to have the legal representative type as a litigant person in this instance, and I'm going to put down the name of the company, and you fill out the address details and the country of origin and a postcode. I'll hit save, and I can repeat the process now for the defendant as well. In this instance, I'll do an individual, again a litigant in person. Again, I should put in some information. Let's save here. Again, click save and next. I can then specify the value of this particular claim. Save and next. At this point, I can put any comments in here I wish to put in. So if I want to draw anyone's attention to anything, I can put it in here or use that as almost like a covering letter. I have to say who I'm filing on behalf of. and then I can choose, and I would have done all the preparing the claim form or any other documentation outside of the system, and now I just need to save it locally, and then I need to upload the file. So I'll go into my system, I find my documents, there's my claim form, I can hit save and next, and I'm now on the filing summary page. Now again, I can, if I need to, anytime there's a blue page icon, I can click on that open up the document, and again I can go back through, check any information I need to, and if there was any additional documents, I can add an associated filing and upload those documents as well. But in this instance, I'm happy with what I've got, so I should just click add to basket, and on the following screen, I'm now in my basket. Again, I can see which court I'm filing with, what it is I'm saying I'm filing, how many documents were attached, and I can see that the fee for that particular filing. So I can see there's a £10,000 fee on this one. So I now submit filings, and I have three options of making a payment. I can pay by card, I can use a fee account system, or I can go to the help with fees option. If you pay by card, that takes you through to the Barclaycard portal, which is who we bank, the system that we use. You can pay by any kind of card apart from Amex card, so we don't accept American Express, but Visa, MasterCard are all accepted, so you can go through that way. Help with fees is where you've got the link here to the help with fees system, so you can make your an elected person can make their application online for a help with fees number, and once they have received a help with fees reference number, they can type it in here. Just for this example, I'm just going to use a dummy PBA number, and I can click OK. And here's my filing confirmation. So I have each filing gets its own unique submission number and confirmation number. It tells me how I've made a payment, if I've made a payment, the date and time the filing was made. Again, it reiterates the information that I had in the basket, and I also have a show printable version, which is a PDF document which can open up, which has the same information. So again, here it has your information on here, and it acts as a type of receipt for you. So if I go back, and if I go back to my home screen, you'll see that the filing has been submitted. And so I have to wait for the court to process that filing. I get a notification within the system, and also by email if that's how you've set your account up, which will show you that the filing has been submitted and when it was submitted. I also get a confirmation back. I'll get a notification back if the filing has been approved, if it's rejected, or if the filing there's been an error in the application as well, meaning the filing hasn't reached the court. You'll get a notification for those as well. Once a filing has been approved, you'll get a notification. It'll move into your approved filings queue, and it'll give you the case number. And I've got one in here already accepted. So I can click on that link, and then I'll be able to download the document and view the document here. I can save the document locally, and then I can then serve those documents on the relevant parties I need to serve the claim forms on. Also, I shall just make a note of that, copy that number. Okay, search, and I can quickly search and look at the case view. If I go in here, case number, I can search for that, and I can see here, if I go click on the case number, I can see again this is a case view, so it gives you a little bit more information, and it will list all the documents that are available to be seen on the eFile system, and that would have been directed, or that would have been informed that by the court to say which documents they want parties to be able to see, and it will have that a list here, and that list obviously grows. So, for example, in business and property court, I know if there's an acknowledgement of service, a certificate of service, a defence claim, orders, judgments, they along the other list items will appear in this list, and this list just gets longer and longer, and you can go in and again review the documents. Okay, so that's the end of the demonstration, as brief as it was. I'll now hand back, and we'll go through and deal with any question and answers.
Thank you all very, very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again to Francis, Jackie, Laura and Steve for a fascinating session. I'm Dr. Ryan Wilkinson. I'm a Senior Data Analyst within the Strategy and Change Directorate here in HMCTS, and I'm facilitating the Q&A for this session. Thank you already so much to everyone who has asked questions via the Q&A tab. And if you have any more questions, please tell us by clicking on the question mark icon in the top right hand corner of the screen, and we'll do our best to get round to all of them. Our first question is for Francis, and that question is, can anyone use the e-filing service on CE-File to submit a claim or appeal with the relevant court or tribunal, or add supporting documentation?
Yes, they can. It's available to both litigants in persons and professional court users. But first of all, you must make sure that you register for an account to be able to use it. Thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks, Francis. I've got a couple of questions next for Jackie. First person said, really interesting session. Thank you to everyone who presented. When will CE-File be rolled out to the first tier tribunals?
Thank you. So the first tier tribunals aren't actually getting CE-File. They are having a system built that is being used across quite a lot of reform called Core Case Data. So IAC has already been built. Employment Tribunal is currently being built. So they're being rolled out gradually over the next year or so. Thank you.
Thank you. Just another quick follow-up maybe that you might be able to help answer, Jackie. Is the plan to roll out CE-File to the other Queen's Bench Division District Registries in stages or all at once? When is the next expansion anticipated?
So CE-File has been rolled out to the district registries that we have in our plan to roll out to. So we're not planning to roll out any more to any other district registries. Where we've rolled them out, it's because there's also a business and property court activity also occurring, and it's often the same people that do a lot of this work, which is why they're all using the same system.
Cool, thank you. Steve, I have a couple of questions for you, if that's okay. And the first one's literally just come in. Could you explain the difference between add another and add associated filing as you showed in your demo? Oh, you're on mute again, Steve.
Sorry, I apologise. I took that off, but it went back on. Sorry, apologies. Yeah, so for example, one example is I know one jurisdiction, when you're filing an application notice, it asks that you also file your witness statement, draft order, statements of costs, for example, all together as just one filing. So that's where you would use the add another option. Alternatively, the add associated filings may well be that you may have in a Part 7 claim, it might be that you file the claim form, and add another, you might do the witness statement and then add another with the exhibits. So it depends on what the filing type, and it also depends on what the jurisdiction. It just creates two separate case events if you do add associated filing, whereas if you do it add another, it creates it as one case event, and on the system it will just appear as one line with the multiple documents.
Brilliant, thank you. I believe this next question is for Laura. Laura, please tell me if this isn't for you, but the question was, is fee remission applicable at the Court of Appeal for litigants in person? If so, how is it assessed or calculated?
I'm going to defer that one back to Steve, if I may.
So my understanding is, yes, you can, but it might be one that we take away and liaise with the Court of Appeal directly, because I don't want to say yes it is, and then the Court of Appeal say it's not. But it's assessed. It should be assessed in the same way. It's all online. I don't know if it's online now. the actual process and how help with fees are assessed, I'm not too sure myself. So again, it's one of those questions we'll have to take away and look into a bit further. But you can apply online, and it should give you an answer there and then as to whether or not you're eligible for help with fees or partially eligible.
Fantastic, thank you. This one I think might be for Laura, so let's try second time's a charm. Does CE File interact with the damages claims portal that HMCTS are encouraging legal reps to use?
No, it does not. I don't unfortunately have any more information around that. I'm not particularly familiar with this portal, but I do know that the EFOP doesn't interact with it. We can certainly look into understand a little bit more about this if that's useful. But no, there is no link between the two.
Thank you. And then I think we've got only a couple more questions. So if anybody who is watching has any other further questions that they'd like to add before the end of the session, please do get typing away, and we'll definitely make sure we can cover them before the end of the session. But I do have two more questions for Steve. The first one is, can I pay the relevant court fee on CE File if I'm eligible for help with fees? So maybe it links to your previous question.
Yeah, so if you're eligible for help with fees, yes, and as I showed on the demo, there's an option for help with fees, and if you've got a help with fees reference number, so if you've been through and applied online and you're eligible, you'll be given a reference number from the system, and you can enter that reference number into the help with fees part of the payment method. If you're going to send in, if you're applying for help with fees, but you can do it as a paper application, I would suggest that you contact the court directly first before you make your filing. And then liaise with them, and they'll tell you the next steps to take and how you can make the payment, make your filing without actually paying a fee up front. But that'll be a discussion between yourself and the court.
That sounds like some good advice. Thanks, Steve. And then the last question that I had for you at the minute is, can parties not involved in my claim or appeal have access to my case?
So that would come down to whichever jurisdiction it is that you're filing with. So, for example, I know as I mentioned before, the Business and Property Court and also Queen's Bench Claims and Appeals, there's a public search function, and that allows users to look at and obtain copies of certain documents. So, for example, it's statements of case, claim forms, defences, orders and judgments made in open court are the options or the documents that they can obtain. But it's very restricted as to what they can and can't obtain. But there's also a manual check by a member of staff before any documents are released to make sure that they should be allowed out. But that is exactly the same as it was pre-C file. So with the only difference being that rather than someone coming down to the court and looking at a manual book to look at cases and then requesting documents, it's just done electronically now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve. And thank you to everyone who presented today and for all of your attentive answers to questions. We do have one final question that we'll ask now. So who is this going to be for? I'm going to put it to Steve again, I think, if you wouldn't mind. So thank you for advising about the Court Case Data Programme. Will that platform connect with CE File to transfer files to the upper tribunals via an API?
That's probably one for Jackie. I would have thought, and Jackie, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no link at the moment, and as far as I'm aware, there isn't going to be a link between the two databases. But I said, I think Jackie may be the best person to answer that question.
Thank you. No, there are no plans to link CE File to any other databases. I noticed a question in the chat. I don't know if this is associated with it about court case data and whether information will be moved from court case data. I think it was for immigration and asylum into CE File. The answer to that is where the immigration and asylum first tier system has been built. There has a mechanism been built where all the core information is passed up to CE File and the upper tribunal team. But there are no plans at the moment to link CE File to any other databases.
Wonderful. Oh, they literally just keep trickling in just at the end. So I'm going to put this one, I think, to Francis, and feel free to pass it on if it's not for you. So this question is, are there plans to allow users to conduct public search and office copies requests using e-filing beyond just QB and business and property courts? Your turn to be on mute, Francis, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you for that question. As far as I'm aware, there are no plans. The jurisdictions that was mentioned in the presentations, those are the only jurisdictions that are within scope of CE file at the moment. So as far as I'm aware, there really are no more plans to roll out to any further jurisdictions.
Brilliant, thank you. And so with that, I would say that if any of the delegates have any last questions, feel free to still put them in the chat, and we can ensure that at the end of the public user engagement event this year, we can make sure that any questions are kind of bundled together and thematic answers can be published on gov.uk. So please keep an eye out for that. And as the slide on the screen says, if you have any questions at all for the closing Q&A panel tomorrow, which I believe is at 3:45 in the afternoon, then please email changesomethingthatmatters@justice.gov.uk. We can ensure your question is asked there. But I think with that all wraps up, it's now left to me to close the session. So thank you very, very much for everyone who's attended. Thank you again to our speakers, to Jackie, to Francis, to Laura and to Steve. And yeah, just hope you enjoy the rest of the Public User Engagement Event 2021. Thank you.